pay tithe. He gave tithe. So the New Testament believer doesn't pay tithe because paying is a legal term. It's somebody in a contract with and you are paying. And when you pay, you are in pain. When you pay, you are obligated somehow. You are paying. But when you give your tithe, it is now an act of honor and a voluntary act out of your own will, not out of compulsion. You are giving to God, not paying to God. Whenever tithe is mentioned in the Old Testament or in the Abrahamic order, it is giving to God. Why do Christians give their tithe to God? They give their tithe because of Romans 12, verse 1 in the NIV. Romans 12, verse 1 in the NIV. This is one of those big scriptures that we talk about. But let us read that verse, and as we flight it in the screen, on the screens.
In view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship.
Watch. He says, I beseech you, brethren, to offer your body in view of the mercies of God. In view of the mercies of God. In other words, he says, the King James Version says, give your bodies or offer your bodies in view of the mercies. In view of the mercies. And a New Testament tither gives his tithe not compelled or pushed, but in view of the mercies of God, moved by what God has done in his life and what God is doing in his life, moved by that, he honors God with 10% of his time, of his income, because in view of what God is doing, you might call yourself poor, and you say, I don't have anything to offer to God. Anyone, because of God's grace, in grace, God will always give you something. Can I say it again? Let me repeat it again. The mercy of God, God will give you things you don't deserve. Even the very unemployed will give you something. Whatsoever he puts in your hand, in view of what he has done, honor him with 10%. Am I talking to somebody? In view of his love, in view of his abundant grace, honor him with your 10%. God does not ever expect anything that he did not deposit in your life. Whatsoever falls in your hand, release 1/10. Am I talking to somebody? And the Bible says, Abraham gave 1/10 of all, not some. There are young people who are saying, I cannot be a tither because I'm not employed. Wrong mindset. Some are saying, I'm not the breadwinner at home. My husband is a breadwinner. I cannot be tithing. Whatsoever comes into your hand, 10%, honor God with it and see God's work in your life. We spoke about Mr. Colgate, William Colgate. He went to New York to look for work. And as he was coming out of the ship, the captain was standing there and the crew greeting every passenger alighting from the boat. And he saw this young man and said, young man, what are you coming to do in New York? He said, I'm coming to work. But if God gives me grace, I will start my own company of beauty products and health products. And the captain leaned over and said, young man, when God gives you anything, tithe that. The boy smiled and said, sir, Mr. Captain, Mama had already taught me that everything that falls into my hand, I must take 10% to God. And he said, do likewise. He did that, and he got a job. And in this health, this company that was selling health products, he got a job. And through his tithing, he rose until he got into management. From management, he rose and he became a shareholder. From shareholding, the owner died. He bought the shares out. And when he took over, he said, write a letter to the accountant that the accountant of this company must open an account. This account must be called Jesus' account. He said every dollar that gets into this company, 10% must go to Jesus' account. Jesus' account grew. He started tithing 20%, 30%, and until he said, Jesus is the major shareholder of this company. Today, the Colgate company is all over the world through the miracle of tithing. The Rockefellers, the most, these guys are rich. The very founder of this whole empire of the Rockefellers was a tither. Where does it come from? It comes from faithfulness in tithing. Ladies and gentlemen, let us understand this. And last Sunday I said, Abraham, Jesus himself, the God of heaven, helped him to fight kings. Over 9 kings attacked Sodom, and they captured Lot, and they took a lot of things there. And Abraham heard that Lot was captured. He took trained servants in his house and left with them to pursue the kings. They slaughtered them through the help of God. He came back with treasuries, marching back home with victory. But he was not aware that the king of Sodom has now regrouped. He's coming for him. But before the king of Sodom arrived, Melchizedek jumped in and intercepted the trouble that was coming. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a tither, the coming trouble, Jesus will intercept. I'm talking about the blessing of interception. Those who are planning to take your company by hostile takeover, before they do so, there will be interception. Those who are planning to demote you and take you out of your position, before they implement, there will be an interception. And I decree and declare the blessing of interception to every tither in the house. There will be an interception. It's not only the blessing of an interception, but also the blessing of cleaning dirty money. Am I talking to somebody here? Cleaning dirty money. Abraham, in Genesis 13, he pulled out of Egypt with silver and gold, with wealth from Egypt. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that Egypt was under demonic worship, under magicians, because every throne is backed by an altar. Now the altar of the pharaohs in Egypt, it was backed by sorcerers, magicians, demonic forces. Here comes Abraham with silver and gold from demonic altars, contaminated mammon. He rushes, he's coming out with livestock, gold and silver, contaminated with spirits. And God realizes that this guy is carrying money that is contaminated. And in Genesis 14, Melchizedek, when he came there, he was not only intercepting the attack of the king of Sodom, but he was also intercepting the demonic forces in the wealth that he has amassed from other kings and even from Egypt, so that when he tithe, then the wealth becomes sanctified. The wealth becomes clean. I told you that demons can travel using matter. Even the anointing and the Spirit of God can travel using matter. We saw in Acts chapter 19 that now Paul's handkerchief was full of the anointing. The sick were healed. The Spirit of God could travel using matter. And now the opposite is also true. Demons can be transmitted into your life using matter. Somebody, I told you that the money that you have in your hand might be coming from a Sangoma altar. The money that you have, it might be money that the prostitute was paid for a sexual transaction, that thing is full of lust. Am I talking to somebody? I got information that they speak to money. It's dominant among the Indians, the Chinese, the Asians. Listen, those people are taught to speak to money. They speak to money. Every currency that lands in their hand, they speak to it that it must go and collect money from Christians. So the money that you take out of the ATM, it is an assignment over your life. It is assigned. The change that you get from anyone who is from a contrary faith, it has an assignment. Not so long ago, one of my mentors said, never receive an offering and never sanctify it. Never receive an offering and never sanctify it. They give you clothes. They give you shoes, Louis Vuitton. They give you Nike. They give you those favorite brands you want. But who gave you matters? Who gave it to you? Sometimes unintentionally. There are people who exchange clothes. Your brother, your sibling, your direct sibling, you living together in one house. Le aparelan. The other one is living a lustful life. When you are living this Christian life, suddenly, when you are wearing this t-shirt, lust comes upon you. And you can't trace it. Anything you receive must be sanctified. But if you are a tither of all, everything, when you release 10%, what remains is sanctified, is declared blessed and holy, because